Hi everyone, LiberAnarchy here. I wanted to put my 2 cents in about the Hunger Games. It's a little bit late, I suppose. I don't necessarily keep up with pop culture. I just saw it tonight. And I wanted to give my little review on it. Now, word of warning, unless you're a robot, it's very hard to watch. If you have any shred of human empathy or human sympathy, it's difficult because it is a movie about children killing children in rather graphic ways. And that is fairly disturbing. Now, having said that, due to the graphic and disturbing nature of the film, it does succeed in accomplishing its goal. Now, okay, some people say it is more Marxist, others people say it is libertarian. I can see a Marxist bent to it, certainly, because there is a clear bourgeoisie and a clear proletariat. Bourgeoisie being the people living in the capital, they are the property owners, the powers that be, and the district people are the working class. Although some districts are more poor than others. Now, okay. On the whole, the movie was good in that it was well done. The acting was decent. I liked the cinematography because there were points where it was creative without being so artistic and weird that you're like, why? For example, showing a wasp's nest from the bottom, that, it's maybe an unusual camera angle, but it's not just completely like, what? And the action sequences are good. They were well done, but they weren't completely, Matrix style kind of things. I didn't see a whole lot of cliches. For example, now, within the story, the main character, Katniss, there was some, I think, unrealistic parts. First of all, her past is that part of her past was that her father died, and when her father died, her mother disengaged and neglected her. So, as the title says, hunger. There's parallel here. She suffered from malnutrition. She was neglected. So you could say, well, that toughened her up and prepared her for the Hunger Games that she was put through by the government. However, I don't think she would be terribly healthy. I don't think that she would have survived. But that's just from somebody who's paying a lot of attention to nutrition, just due to the fact that I've been sick, so I've been paying very close attention to my diet. So I just didn't think that was realistic. And I think her father dying, well, that's cliche. I'm sorry, but that is a bit cliche. However, that is, again, something that people would think would toughen somebody up. And while it may toughen some people up, so to speak, make them more, I guess, task-oriented in the face of death, and make them more used to death, acclimate them to it a little more, other people would certainly end up more traumatized. And that brings me to another point. Even though the teenagers in the movie are trained, I think there would be more of them that break down. They just lose it because they're afraid, or because they're rebellious teenagers, or you're going to have some people who are like, well, I'm going to choose how I want to go out, I'm going to kill myself, or they're just so depressed because they know they don't have a chance, so they kill themselves. I mean, we are dealing with teenagers here We aren't dealing with pragmatic, hardened soldiers. They get a certain period of time where they are training, and again, that may harden them, but this isn't like, you know, battle hardened soldiers that, or, or even adults. Teenagers are more impulsive and more emotional, generally speaking. So I don't think that having, all the teenagers act in a way that would basically, even though they all did choose to kill each other, still they acted a little bit more mature given the situation that they were in. Having said that, you did get a group of teenagers at one point who were ganging up on Katniss, and you did have temporary alliances, and I certainly think that would happen. In fact, in the social life of teenagers, that happens a lot, where one girl for whatever reason falls out of favor with the clique, so the clique turns their back on her and just forget about it. You're toast. Socially, we're never inviting you to anything, and now we're just going to make fun of you and pick on you and gang up on you. And then, well, that's going to be forgotten in a little while, and then somebody else falls out of favor, and then they get ostracized, etc., and so forth. Let's see. I had some. Now, if you're interested in Roman history, you will probably like this film. Yeah, it's gladiators, and it's pretty obvious. There are a lot of Roman names in it, and the person hosting the games is named Caesar. Ooh, bit obvious, but there are some Roman names like Cato and some other ones. But actually, the ending, I will not spoil it. It was very Roman. Actually, I found the ending a little bit disappointing. I liked some parts of it because, again, it was very Roman. It fit with the theme of the movie. However, as far as the quote winners, I don't like how they handled it. I do not think how they handled it was libertarian. Which brings me to another point. At one point, somebody from District 11 is killed. Her name is Rue, and okay, that's a spoiler, but she is very young, and District 11 starts flipping out and revolting. But this doesn't like flow over to the other districts, and you don't have a revolt of the proletariat, and then all property communized, and then you have everyone saying, oh well, we just don't need the government anymore, now we're just going to live in a society where everything is communal and everyone is equal. It's not Marxist. That revolution doesn't work. And in the ending, you do not see a revolt. You actually see essentially the status. Well, let's just say there is no revolution. Okay. It is in fact not a happy ending. And so there is no workers' revolution. So now it's not libertarian because you do see one of the teenagers say, well, if I'm going to die, I want it to be by my own terms rather than by theirs. Well, that's fine and good, but we do not see a contrast between this dystopian tyranny and freedom. We don't see freedom, really. It's not even, in my mind, it's not even there. And when you see the ending, you do not see people making choices. It's not a happy ending. Now, you may interpret it differently, and that's okay. But as I see it, the bad guys won. You do not see... Now, again, I don't think that's a spoiler because you can interpret it differently. However, you do not see any survival of libertarian values. It is actually very bleak and very cynical. In fact, within the movie, you the political class, as it were, or the government, or the upper class, however you want to see it, um, they actually um, guide the game such that any movement toward personal liberty is, basically quashed. I found it very interesting that the upper class and the capital, they were very interested in aesthetics, interested in how things look. And I find this somewhat eerie because yesterday, yeah, it's Wednesday, yesterday I had more work done on a tattoo, and I just bought some earrings to be put in my ears. They are 16 gauge, so um, I'm going from what's probably 18 or 20 gauge to 16, and there's they're nothing huge, or they're nothing particularly wild, but it's somewhat eerie because I'm doing things to make myself more aesthetically pleasing to myself. And the tattoo, I mean, it has meaning to me, but still it's altering the human form to make it aesthetically beautiful rather than leaving it as is, as it came out in just the natural real world. And I think this extreme what's the word I'm looking for? Fixation on aesthetic appearances reflects how disconnected the upper class in this world, or wink wink nudge nudge, in ours, are disconnected from reality. Okay, and some of the upper class, some of the fashion of the upper class is reminiscent of stuff that the upper class would have worn back in the 1700s or the 1800s, but certainly not all of it, but some of it. And like the first time we see anyone from the upper class, as soon as I saw her, I thought, Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. And she wasn't dressed like straight out of the French Revolution or something, but just her hairstyle and her just attitude and the things that she valued, such as a table rather than the human beings sitting at the table. We were like, oh, okay, this is the attitude of the upper class. This is when we were introduced to the upper class. And it just reminds me of the royals that were so unaware. Marie Antoinette supposedly said, oh, we'll let them eat cake, when she heard of the plight of the lower classes in France. Now, some people will say, well, Marie Antoinette did not actually say that. That's not the point. That's what, in my opinion, she was referring to. It's like, the upper class, this is the epitome of what the upper class is like. Now, okay, children from different districts killing each other. Oh, well, first of all, I do want to point out one interesting thing. The president, I don't know if they called him a president or a dictator or whatever, but he was talking about hope and how the reason they don't just line up people from the districts every year and just execute them is because he wants people to have a sliver of hope, because people are easier to control, not just when they're afraid of you, but rather when they have a little bit of hope. Not too much hope, but just a little bit. Then they will keep striving. Hope. Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Remind you of anybody? Just saying. And I think a lot of people saw through that very easily, because I remember seeing red, white, and blue unicorns with hope underneath after the fashion of Barack Obama, Yeah, stuff like that. People were like, "Oh, well, that's great." Hope. Um, okay, what the fuck? What does that even mean? Right? Yeah. So, um, okay, the child sacrifice, the children killing one another. Um, well, this could be interpreted as a number of things. If you are a conspiracy theorist, you could see it as the New World Order killing off children from particular countries in wars. Actually, if you don't even have to be a conspiracy theorist to see the upper classes, the very, very, very wealthy, the very, very, very politically connected, whether it be literally politicians or bankers or even, oil tycoons and speculators and this and that, essentially having wars between different countries and killing off, sacrificing the children to those wars. And of course, the people in different countries, like districts, will of course root on their own children and hope that their own children are the ones that don't get killed and kill the other people's children. Now, this could also be taken as just a statement of America's foreign policy in the past, say, let's see, in the past decade or so, where we have troops. Well, actually, considering Vietnam, you could actually consider it a commentary on America's fairly recent foreign policy in the last decades of interventionism and just sacrificing children to things like Afghanistan and Iraq. And even though in Afghanistan, when the Soviets had it, the United States was training soldiers from groups like Hezbollah and Al Qaeda. Well, now they attacked us, but instead of examining our own foreign policy, well, excuse me, I'm including myself with these people. I had no control over this. I was like, 5, 10 years old. I didn't even vote, so I bear no responsibility whatsoever. But the point is, instead of examining foreign policy, the United States throws children into more wars. Well, maybe not children, but 18 and up and so on into more wars, are young men and women. You could also interpret this as, it's very interesting, the the contestants, what were they referred to? They weren't even referred to as human beings. It was like they were products, because they weren't contestants, they weren't combatants, they were not competitors. I forget the word they used. Wow. But yeah, and another. So you could also see this as the government dehumanizing children and just basically conditioning them to say, "Do you think yours is not to wonder why? Yours is but to do or die." As you may remember that line from Charge of the Light Brigade. States conditioning children to just do what they're told, in spite of the fact that they're probably not going to survive, to sacrifice themselves for their countries. You could also interpret this as the government basically selling our children's futures. That is to say, the government racking up so much enormous debt to say, pay for things like Social Security or wars, or recently to come down the pipe, Obamacare, etc., and so forth. But the children, they don't get a say in this, and they end up wallowing in debt because of this. It's not a sustainable system. And so what's happening is children are getting less and less employment prospects and basically are going to wind up in more and more and more debt as long as the system keeps going like it is. Now, now you could also see it in the light of uh, reality TV shows and sports and such. For example, now if you're a conspiracy theorist, you'll say, well, the powers that be use sports and reality TV and entertainment and blah 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 in order to distract us. Well, you know what? You do have a choice over what you're watching. Just saying. So I really don't buy into that theory. I mean, if you're sitting down and choosing to watch a favorite sports team and you're complaining about the powers that be somehow distracting you from what's really real or trying to make you particularly out of shape or something, well, you can choose not to eat a snack, you can choose not to watch your sports, you still have the choice. So I don't have too much sympathy for those people. But there is still a sense of people choosing to say go out clubbing, drinking, watching sports, watching movies, watching Entertainment Tonight, and all the you know extra and Inside Edition and all these weird sleazy news shows or Keep Up with Celebrities and all this. And there's this very detached sense where people are just distracting themselves. And it's not even like other people want to distract them. People are choosing to distract themselves as opposed to getting engaged in what is actually going on. And let's see, you could also interpret this as political parties being pitted against each other. I want our new master to be thus and so. Well, I want our new master to be thus and so. And special interest groups pitted against each other. I want a law that protects these people from, being, I don't know, these people from hate speech. Well, I want a law protecting, this institution from those people over there that I'm afraid of. Let's make a law to do my interest. No, let's make a law to do my interest. Let's make blah da 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 da. And pitting people against each other rather than letting people see that, oh, we're under control of this Leviathan government. Whoa. And uniting against a Leviathan government, which doesn't necessarily mean violent revolution, by the way. I don't think violent revolution would accomplish much except for another government of the same nature, if not worse. Let's see, you could also see this, let's see, elections. You could also see this in the sense of, lobbyists for special interest groups, lobbying the politicians who are supposed to represent them. Let's see. Okay, and I remember there was a person who was supposed to be essentially like an advisor, mentor, instructor for these two that were headed to the games from District 12, and he was a drunkard. He represented the person in the system that didn't believe in the system. It's like he cared, but he didn't like what he was doing, and he didn't believe in the system. And his response wasn't to just try to do something from the inside or try to fight the system openly or whatever. His response was to drink so that he could resign himself to being a part of this system that he did not support. And there are people who, of course, who do that. They look at things as they are and they give up. And they get into drinking or drugs, or they distract themselves with sports or with the internet. I mean, I have my escapes. I enjoy role playing, for example. I mean, and I'm not, yeah, role playing is a little bit more intellectual than watching football or baseball, but if you have a real passion for baseball, you're going to get intellectual about it. You're not going to just be like some, idiot that's completely disengaged from reality. You're going to be thinking about what's going on. And you're going to know all about stats and everything and about how the game is affected by certain things. Okay, so not all sports viewers are idiots, and certainly not all role players are intellectual, and generally speaking, although role playing is more intellectual, I am more imaginative, the gears are turning. I'm not going to be a snob. Why should I be a snob? I mean, role playing is certainly an escape. Many people go into World of Warcraft, and that's an escape. And there are people who, in order to just escape the circumstances of their life as they are, because they believe they cannot do anything about them because the system, whatever that system is, makes it impossible for them, they just go and escape. Now is it impossible for them, things being as they are? Well, that depends on their situation. In most cases, I would say no. However, again, it really depends on the person and their situation. And maybe this is a person who has maybe post-traumatic stress disorder, and he really and truly cannot cope with the reality of what he's doing because maybe he understands. Maybe he was a part of the games or something. Maybe he understands exactly what's going on. But yeah, children killing children is really, really, really hard to watch. And I pick up on a lot of themes in this movie. And I think a lot of people do. But I don't think it was Marxist because the revolution didn't work and you didn't have the working class becoming conscious, like, developing class consciousness and saying, oh, well then let's revolt. And when we do revolt, let's oust the property owners and then not have any more property owners and say we all own the property, and and let's establish a dictatorship, a bourgeoisie for the proletariat, and then once everything succeeds and there is essentially no more bourgeoisie because the dictators do represent us and they're oh so good, and then voila, we eventually don't even need a government anymore. It wasn't like some systematic revolution. It was just this pocket in District 11 that just kind of started rebelling. And it wasn't libertarian, and when you see the end, you'll understand why I say that. And there was no real contrast of this is freedom here, this is what freedom would look like or could look like or does look like, this is how free people associate, these are the good guys, the free people, what we want to preserve, and this is the totalitarian government. Some people say that the movie is about capitalism because it pits us against one another. I can certainly see where it would be about crony capitalism in the sense that you do have the politically well-connected pitting the little guys against each other. The huge corporations wouldn't exist without the state, will hire lobbyists to influence politicians, so they make new regulations, not that make business more ethical, but rather to just make it more difficult for new people to enter a certain business. Hence, it's safer, things are more monopolized or closer to it, etc. and so forth. Because regulations, they don't affect really rich people. They can just buy lawyers and say, oh, well, don't do this, that's illegal, but you can proceed like this, this, and this, but avoid doing that, blah, 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 blah. But the little guy, so to speak, who just wants to start a business, it's extremely hard to deal with those regulations because we don't have the money, the resources to hire all these lawyers so that we can follow all these regulations. So you could certainly see how it's crony capitalism, how you have a very politically well connected, a very an upper class, so to speak, that uses their power to pit the lower classes against one another. Um, However, I don't really see it as just about, you know, as it being a movie about capitalism and what capitalism does, because I don't see some like, oh, there's a bad old business person who exploits the workers. And but now again, well, you certainly there is a business, and that business does exploit people. But remember, the business of this reality TV show is ultimately headed by the states. So yes, you can see it as crony capitalism. Now, okay, another theme is reality TV and how people, which is a way a lot of people distract ourselves. But I don't get reality TV. I don't like it. I don't watch it. Most of it is just conceptually stupid. And the stuff that isn't, it isn't real. It's not actually reality. It's not like you have like Survivor, for example. It's not like you have people who are actually stranded on an island. The people are pitted against each other artificially in a situation where everyone's stranded. Yeah, sure, you might have very dysfunctional situations where everyone kills each other, but you also might have situations where everyone cooperates. So, and you probably have everything in between, it just depending on the personalities of those involved. So, reality TV isn't actually reality, just like the very superficial, you know, lifestyle and the fake fire that was going behind the chariots, and just glitz and glamour, and how the forest was set up with genetically engineered creatures, and how sponsors would be able to give the competitors things, the gladiators things, just spontaneously. They'd just be able to spontaneously generate these things. It is not reality at all. And everyone knows it. The only thing that's real is that real people are dying. So this could certainly be a commentary, and probably is, on reality TV and the nature of it, and how people just get absorbed in, quote, reality TV show where, yeah, people are really competing, but it's not actually in any sort of real setting. It's contrived. It's fake. Also, keep in mind that a lot of people are going to the theater to watch a story about children killing each other. What does that say about us? Now, Stefan Molyneux was pretty flabbergasted that so many people were raving about this movie and didn't say anything about how disturbing it was to watch children kill each other, which it is pretty disturbing. But having said that, the children aren't actually dying, and we know that. So it's not like people are going and saying, wow, this is really thrilling. These children are killing each other and we get to watch it. However, conceptually it is disturbing in that everyone's seeing something that is a story about children killing each other. It's ironic. The story is like, we don't want our society to turn out this way, right? And I agree. However, if you don't want your society to turn out this way, then perhaps we shouldn't go to the movie and give it money. So, while the book and buy the books. So, in a way, buying the books and watching the movie is quite a commentary about our society. And I think if the author of the books is smart, I think it's a she. Correct me if I'm wrong. She would have anticipated that, and how people react to the books and to the movie is in and of itself a commentary about our society. We're going to see a story about children killing each other, to put it very bluntly. Not just gladiators, child gladiators. What does that say about us? And I do notice that in people's reviews, they're not saying, wow, this is disturbing, or don't take your kids to see this. I would not take children to see this, but very few people are saying, wow, this is disturbing. I'm not saying that people are not saying this. However, I'm saying it because it disturbed me. And you can tell me it's just a movie, but the idea disturbed me nonetheless. Now, but I don't see a whole lot of people talking about how disturbing the idea is. I see people philosophically analyzing the movie, or analyzing it for its politics, or analyzing it for its social commentary, and that's fine and good. But very few people are like, I find this offensive, or something. And if somebody did find it offensive and said, "Oh, you don't go watch this," I'd be like, "Look, people are gonna. You can be offended all you like, but people are gonna go watch it, yeah." But I'm surprised how few people are coming out and saying, "I'm offended," or how few people are coming out and saying, "Wow, this is really upsetting to me." I mean, I left the theater feeling sick. And, you can, laugh at me because it is just a movie. And it's very important to remember that, which is why I'm not offended in the least, and I wouldn't, in a way I'm glad I don't have a lot of people going, oh, I'm so offended. But in a way I'm kind of surprised that you don't have some weird group of people out there talking about how offensive this is. And you don't have, like, a whole bunch of people getting on YouTube and saying, wow, this is upsetting to me. What are we watching? Or something like that. Well, then maybe I just need to get a thicker skin. I don't know. Because it is just a movie. Like, when people got offended at, say, the South Park movie, I'm like, really? What are you offended by? Puppet sex? Were you offended by the satire? Really? What were you offended by? Cussing? Well, if you're not, if you don't get upset by the cuss words, the words themselves no longer have power over you. So I don't know what to tell you, dude. But my God, the idea is just disturbing, and it was meant to be disturbing. I think I would hope the author meant it to be disturbing as opposed to just flat out entertaining. But okay, so yeah, it's a bit eerie that more people aren't going, oh my God. Now Stephen Molyneux, he's like, oh my God, I don't like this movie. Ooh. I would expect more people to do that, actually. Now, I liked some parts of it and did not like other parts of it. And I do think it was well done, so I will give it credit for being well done. I would not personally watch it again. I mean, if it was like on at somebody else's house, I'd, maybe watch it if other people were watching it or something, but I would not go out of my way to watch it again. So perhaps I'm naive and just too sensitive, but those are my thoughts about the Hunger Games, or excuse me, the Hunger Game. And now would I recommend it? I don't know. It really depends on how strong of a stomach you have. I can watch a billion horror movies and not get disturbed. But the idea of killing children, and other people being entertained by it, now that's really horrifying to me. That's the kind of stuff that gives me nightmares. I mean, zombies, vampires, movies about axe murderers that rise from the grave. They're not real, Or even just movies about really crazy murderers. Yes, sometimes those happen, but the chances that I'm interacting with an axe murderer are slim to none. So, well, they are extremely slim. So it's really not scary to me, and I can watch horror movies up the wazoo and never be disturbed. And I have my favorite horror movies and blah da da da, and I can talk about what I liked in each and blah da 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 da. But this is the kind of stuff that really gets to me. I think the author and ultimately the makers of the movies presented it in a way where I could actually see it happening. And they also presented things in a way that caused me and apparently many other people to reflect upon the world that we do live in. So, to that end, if it's something you're ready for, then by all means go see it. And there's nothing about the movie that makes it a bad movie. It's not like the script is horrible or the acting's terrible or they just threw in pointless sex or just threw in pointless violence or anything like that. So if you can stomach it, sure, go see it. But if you don't think you can stomach it, then I would avoid it. Am I glad that I went to see it? I don't know. I'm kind of I'm divided, actually. It's disturbing. So yeah, I mean I'm divided. Okay, so that's my thoughts on the Hunger Games, and I do apologize for rambling so long, and I do hope you got through this entire thing. And I really should take off this stupid sweatshirt because now I'm getting hot. Oh, it has a hood. Does that mean it's okay to shoot me? I guess this is technically a hoodie, so is it okay in Geraldo Rivera's eyes if I get shot now? I mean, is he okay with a scenario like the Hunger Games so long as the people are dressed like thugs? Alright, well, that's the end of this thing, and know thyself. And in this case, know thy society, know thy government, know thy businesses, etc. and so forth.